Hello, I'm Rosie Hardy. This is Rosie Hardy Gardening, and we are about to do the first of what is now going to be 2 lots of Q&A in a month. So we are going to do a mid-month and an end of a month Q&A going forward until we get to the end of the summer. My son will be asking you for Q&A questions 2 times a month via the community tab. He will overlay some video to show where this is, but should show up in your timeline automatically. We will only answer questions from here moving forwards due to the volume of questions that we're actually now receiving. So let's get on to the questions that people have sent in and they're asking about. So this one is somebody has ordered some rootstock for Sanguisorba obtusa, beautiful plant, lovely tall thing, and they've ordered it as rootstock there for bare root probably, and is asking what they need to work out to have success with it. So if it is coming as bare rootstock, make sure that it's not all shriveled up and dried on the roots, and make sure that it's got a good crown at the top. Now, when you get something bare root like that, sometimes it's difficult to tell which is up and which is down, but the roots are very definitely the bigger part of the plant material. And if they are dry, give them a quick soak. Just drop them into a bucket of water and give them a soak for half an hour, and then plant them out and get them into the ground as quickly as possible. If they're coming in a container or just roughly wrapped around, then again, get them into the ground as soon as possible. Make sure that you have put a good amount of garden compost, organic matter, into the hole that you are planting into. You've got the right location. For Sanguisorba obtusa, it wants a sunny-ish site, so it can have part shade. And make sure that you put it into the ground, not when the ground is freezing, and just get it going, give it a good water in, check it after about 2 to 3 weeks. If there has not been a lot of rain, give it another water and it should get away perfectly well for you. Next, somebody has said that they've seen an awful lot of aphids, particularly on their roses and tulips, and noticed some of them are large brown aphids. For the first time, never seen them before in the garden. And a neighbour has said they might be coming from the bee hotel. Well, that is really unlikely. Basically, there are an awful lot of aphids around this year, and you know, you're going to get lots of different coloured aphids. There are a lot of different forms of aphid, and it's actually good to have that amount of insects around because at the moment the birds need them and everything else. But if you're worried about them being on your plant material, just make sure that you use something which is organic to get rid of them. It's quite easy to wash them off with a little bit of soap and water. That is one of the easiest ways to do it. Or you can brush them off if it's not on a lot of plant material, but it is unlikely to have come from the bee hotel. You know, you're wanting insects in the garden. Sometimes you don't want as many on your plants as are perhaps there, but just look at the plant material. Give it a quick brush off if there's not too many. Make sure if you're going to use anything that it's an organic spray, and usually that is a soft soap. Okay, somebody's saying here that they've planted some Oriental lily bulbs. They've put them down to 3 times the depth of the actual thing. And actually saying in this question that they did it a few days ago and is expecting to see some growth coming through already. It'll take those plants a few weeks before you start to see anything coming up. So please be patient when you put something into the ground. Seeds, bulbs, all of those, they've got to settle in. They have to put their roots down first, then they put their top growth up. So it will take a little bit more time for those to come through. Have a little bit of patience and they will come through and look really wonderful for you. This one is from somebody who is living in the Netherlands. Their father's Clematis montana has recently died, wondering what could have caused it and what should they look out for in the future if they're going to plant one. Firstly, if you're going to plant another Clematis, don't put it in the same spot as you've just taken one out of. If a Clematis dies suddenly, quite often that can be wilt, so you don't want to be putting the same material back into that ground. or it could just be the age of the plant. And we have had a very severe winter through this year, through Britain and in Europe. So it could just easily have succumbed to the winter. But dig out the plant that's there, plant something else in, a different climate, another species, put a clematis somewhere else. Always make sure you get ones which have got good, healthy growth coming from the top. They look as though they've got good root ball, and plant them fractionally deeper than they are in the container. Another one here, why is my Liatris not growing strong? They die after 2 years. So the common name for Liatris is gay feather. Beautiful plants, lovely purple or white flower heads on them. They do come from a bulb corm, and sometimes if that is in the garden and you have a lot of squirrels or voles or something like that, then they can actually go and eat the corms. If you're struggling with it in the garden, try it in a container, and if it grows in a container, then there's something in the garden that is causing it, probably predators like the voles or the squirrels. This is from somebody who asked a question a couple of times back about plants for wet soil. Thanks me very much for that, and thank you for saying so. And is on a very tight budget, so wanted to grow their perennials from seed, and just ask you for some suggestions. My first thing would be, if you're going to grow perennials from seed, get good quality seed. Don't try and grow too many seeds all at one time, just sow a few. And go for species plants to start off with, because species come true from seed, they get away and they flower quicker. Named varieties will take a little bit longer to come through. Do not expect those perennials that you grow from seed to flower in the first year. They will flower in the second year. So things which are quite good will be Coreopsis, Veronica, Violas, Erigeron, Lupins. Those type of plants are very good and easy to grow. Then somebody here has been told that they can't move a rose, and it's a rambling rose in their case. Is this true? And the simple answer to that is no. You can, as long as you move at the right time of year, you can lift and move anything, as long as you take out a large amount of root ball and you chop back the top a small amount. So with a rambling rose, and all roses, you need to be doing it in the autumn or very early spring, winter time, when they are defoliated. You give them a cut back to about half height so that they are easy to handle. You go dig down and you get out as much of the root as you possibly can. You can give it a little bit of a root prune, and then you move it to a nice big hole with lots and lots of muck in it, and it should be perfectly fine. This is somebody who lives in Canada, and she didn't cut her Gora back this year, finding it very difficult because they're very cold there to get it to survive over the winter, and is a little bit worried, doesn't want to keep on having to buy them. I understand that. There are some areas where cold winters are going to make a plant like Gora become a half-hardy perennial. Therefore, it is not going to survive the winter outside. So you need to do something else. So you either take cuttings that you keep inside and keep going and then plant back out again, or you containerize that plant and you move it around and put it out. I hope that helps you. Someone here wondering whether they can cut back their thyme. She's had some thymes in the garden for a couple of years. They're looking quite tiny, but they're starting to get a bit leggy. And the answer is yes, absolutely. Do give them a prune back. It does help them. Just look for new growth in the centre. If you've got long straggly growths, go back and just tidy them up. Now you can do that pruning in another way, in that if you use the thyme for cooking, then go out and cut pieces off, and when you're cutting pieces off, cut it back and do it as a pruning process. You'll get a much bushier plant, and it works really, really well. While you are pruning, and if you get some long pieces, if you've got some nice tip pieces at the end, you can propagate from tip cuttings. Then lastly, somebody is asking, they're in the west coast of Vancouver, zone 8, and they'd like to know some mid-season long period flowering perennials which don't really need staking. This is something we'd all love. You know, occasionally the plants do get a little bit too much food, so they get floppy. But if you go for things which are mid-height, which have strong stems, they don't tend to need to be staked. So leucanthemums, scabious, heleniums, the dwarfer forms, Physostogia, it's got square stems, natural engineering, Coreopsis, Veronicastrums, all of those would be really good mid-sized plants which will grow in your conditions as long as you are able to grow some of those. Do just double check, because I'm doing from my knowledge here in the UK, just double check you're allowed to grow some of those varieties, but they would be the ones to go. Look for things which have got good, strong stems with a bit of ribbing on them. Those are the ones which won't need staking. Thank you very much for listening, and please do subscribe to the channel.